Really impressed with just our competitive nature coming out of the locker room. Obviously, we had a bad taste in our mouth coming out of the Western Kentucky game. We played so well through 39 minutes, and we're unable to close that in a really tough environment with their crowd and so forth. But I thought our week of preparation was awesome. The guys were locked in. We went fairly long on Monday and Tuesday, and I thought defensively we got back to trying to be who we are, and just kind of walking back from the radio talking to, Hunter. I think he summed it up best, that 2.5 minute sequence with 2.5 minutes when we were flying around. I mean, that's kind of how we have to play. That's kind of our identity, and I think that type of play resonates, especially in your own building. When fans see the players' enthusiasm and energy out there like they had.
Eric, Mason was one of 9 last game. Obviously, I don't have a box, but he was a lot better than that today. He hit it like 57 seconds in. He hit a shot. When he hit that, did you think, okay, he's going to have a good game? Just what did you think of his game today?
Yeah, I thought he was great all week, though. He asked me about every night to come have dinner at my house, but he never showed up. So my wife cooked a lot of extra meals for him, and there were a lot of no-shows. But, his practice habits this week were awesome. He was locked in. I thought he was really good defensively tonight. Thought he did a great job of mixing up perimeter shots with 3 balls. Then when he dribble drives, he's got an innate ability to get fouled. I thought, as important as anything was his 13 free throws attempted. But yeah, he got it going tonight, and obviously when we're able to hit double-digit 3 balls, it kind of changes, the game for us. And I thought they did a good job.
Again, they're located at 989 South Razorback Road. Get down there and see Keith and Kathy. Get a plate of that love. And like it says on their building, it's not your mama's, the best chicken and waffles in the South. But we'll go over to my producer, the man behind the scenes, Demetrius. What's up, man, on a Tuesday?
Nothing too much, man. We had a little technical difficulty earlier. I got it fixed, but yeah, I was just trying to make sure the show was going on. I'm like, something's not.
Yeah, because we had a bunch of callers saying no sound.
Yeah, I got it situated though.
Oh, see, I know the best tech man is going to get it worked out, but tomorrow signing day is up on us. I mean, not a lot to be expected, I don't think, from Coach Pittman having had such attrition when Chad Morris was let go. 6 guys stayed on, I believe. You know, you come in and he has just roughly over about a weekend pretty much to sell himself to a lot of potential recruits in the early signing period. What's your expectation? I know they're expected to sign anywhere from 6 to 9. I would say the number really going to hit around 8 with a couple of flips. But, what's your expectation, for signing day tomorrow? What will you be looking for?
My number's 5. I think if we can get 2 linemen out of those 5 and, maybe a linebacker, and then get some of those guys from Arkansas to stay true and come to the university, I'll be pleased with what Sam Pittman brings to the table.
I know tomorrow a lot of Razorback fans will be waiting for the announcement of 4-star All-American Miles Slusher out of Broken Arrow High School, is committed currently to the University of Oregon. But it is going to come down to Nebraska, Oregon, and Arkansas. He was in Fayetteville on the Hill to take in what the Pitt boss and his staff are putting together here at the University of Arkansas this past weekend. So I think Arkansas has really got a shot at Miles. I think I've heard his presser will be at 2 p.m. At his high school tomorrow. Also to 9:30 down in the New Orleans area. Donovan Johnson out of Helen Cox High School will be making a decision between Arkansas and Virginia. He is at the moment committed to the University of Virginia. He's a big-time safety that I think would really help this defense going forward. Real physical, fast young man. And then also it's going to be announcements. Ray Curry, who's currently committed to the offensive line at the University of Missouri. The reason he's there is because Arkansas now has what he thought was going to be his offensive line coach at Missouri is now the offensive line coach here at the University of Arkansas. Brad Davis has got a real great relationship, so he's going to be making his at 1:30. 11 o'clock, Blaine Toll, a guy that I think is really going to be one of the big-time players when that class, goes through their career here at Arkansas. We're going to look back at BT, and he's going to be one of those guys that I think that's going to stick out like a sore thumb with by the plays that he's going to be able to make during his career. And then, also, too, I think you have Rashad Stewart. He's going to be signing, I believe, at 1 p.m. So still a lot's going to be going on down. The big one I know a lot of people are going to be worried about, Jacoby Criswell. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think, it's a situation where, the coaching staff there at UNC has put in 2 real strong years of recruiting Jacoby Criswell. And I think, he's, doing the right thing with he and his family where they feel confident, nothing against the staff here at Arkansas. And I said that a lot with, when Coach Musselman came in and also, too, when Coach Neighbors came in with a lot of the elite in-state kids, is that if you don't get these kids, it's not a knock to the regime that it's just taken over. It's a situation where maybe the relationship is just too much to make up. And I think that's what's going to happen, Demetrius, with this one. And we all know, he is the brother of former Arkansas linebacker and now San Francisco 49er linebacker Dre Greenlaw. I think that's why so much is put on, where this young man is going to go to school. But, we're going to step away, get us a real quick break. We caught up with Tulsa head basketball coach Frank Haith. We're going to hear what Frank has to say following a route that he and his ball club had to go through at the hands of Coach Musselman and those Razorbacks. And then we'll come back with Jake Roos of UGAsports.com. Let's talk a little recruiting and see how the landscape is and how coaches are feeling, and just a little over 24 hours before they start adding to their rosters. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479. Let's get it.
Okay, thank you. Obviously, they played great. We didn't play as well. Isaiah Joe was outstanding, and so was Mason. Those two guys, we couldn't stop them. They were terrific. But we didn't play well. Our defense was not very good. I felt like, Arkansas came in and played extremely hard, played extremely well. We gave them some live ball turnovers where they didn't have to go against our defense. I thought they got them going early in the game. But hats off to them. They play well.
Frank, when a game starts that way, especially on the road in an environment like this, how difficult is it to get back on track?
Well, it's a good experience. I felt like we just didn't have great toughness and resolve we needed to have to get back into the game. And disappointed with that. But there's some things we can take from this game and put it in the memory bank.
Mason had 41. And I think he was 1 of 9 the last game. What would you see from him if you watched that Western Kentucky tape, and kind of what would you see from him today, and how impressed were you by his?
What I saw from today, the ball went through the hoop, and that day it didn't. So, I mean, he made some tough shots, and but he got to go on once he got his rhythm.
Welcome back. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio, coming to you each and every day here on KDSJ 479. And time to talk a little Georgia Bulldogs recruiting with the best in the business when it comes to those dogs down in Athens between the hedges. We're going to catch up, and you hear him a lot when we talk game plans, but now there's a different type of game plan that you must take very seriously in the SEC if you're going to compete for championships, that being the recruiting world. So we thought we'd catch up once again with my good buddy, Jake Roos. JR, welcome back to OTH, my man.
Hey, I appreciate you having me as always, Pat. Thank you.
Talk recruiting. This is the time of year, when teams play those last games, and even during their bowl season, then you have the early signing period hits around, right before Christmas. It's a real busy time, and I think a time where coaches around the country are still getting used to having that early signing period. What's the temperature, and how good does Kirby and staff feel heading into tomorrow's 3-day event where kids can make those early decisions?
I think that it's a good feeling for those guys right now. I think that they're pretty confident in the class that they've put together and the guys that they've got circled on their board. I think overall it's this is the kind of time where they've made a lot of their money. To be honest with you, they've come out and had a lot of great success in this early signing period since that's been implemented, and clearly one of the great recruiting staffs in the SEC. So, a little bit of a bounce back they've had to deal with since Sam Pittman went to Arkansas. I think they had to make up ground with a couple of guys, but still expecting some big names to hop aboard tomorrow.
There was a real big weekend that Kirby and staff just hosted on the Georgia campus. Talk about some of the visitors that made their way. And then there was a real big commitment that you guys got today. How big is that, to add to what could possibly be a real big early signing on starting tomorrow?
I think it was a huge commitment to land Major Burns today, as you mentioned. A kid, a lot of size out of the Louisiana area, so a lot of talent down there as well. Former LSU commit, opened things back up, and then Georgia hosted him over the weekend and seemed to lock things down. And as you mentioned, that weekend visit seems like it was big for a lot of guys. A couple that we're watching is Keely Ringo, especially the 5-star cornerback out of Arizona. How will this kind of factor in and sort of play into his recruitment? He was on campus. Georgia played host to a number of guys. Dante Manning from the Missouri area. It was a big weekend for Georgia, certainly, and it sounds like once again, as they've done in the past, they've managed to impress.
How has the transition? I know there was a big commitment on the offensive line over the weekend by a big-time visitor, with that addition of Matt Luke. I know you did lose one, I believe, a big fella to Florida who decommitted. But talk about, the Matt Luke effect. How has, that part of it kind of worked out from where you can tell so early?
I think it's been a huge hire for Georgia. I think it's been really impactful. Kids are really familiar with Matt Luke. He's recruited a lot of these guys, being the head coach of Ole Miss, and so there's a lot of familiarity with a lot of these situations. I think that Georgia, given the window of time they had to make the hire before National Signing Day, it was a tight window, but overall, it looks like they couldn't have done much better. Has really helped to reassure a lot of those offensive line commitments. Tate Ratledge was a guy we were watching. Would he go ahead and sign? He's announced that his recruitment shut down. He's going to go ahead and ink those papers tomorrow. That was huge for Georgia and huge for Matt Luke to get his tenure started. So got to be thinking the Georgia coaches are very, very pleased with what they've been able to get out of the Luke hire so far.
I know Tate Rutledge was a guy that you guys were hoping that would stay on the offensive line there, but there's two guys I think that a lot of Razorback fans with these two individuals being in states that are really close. With that being Cedric Van Pran, the top center in the country out of New Orleans Easton High School, and also Chad Lindbergh. What are you hearing with these two young men? Are from as far as you can tell, are these still guys that plan to sign early as planned, or what's the latest on Van Pran and Lindbergh?
It does sound like Lindbergh is going to make his decision early. He's going to go ahead and sign in this early period. Georgia does still feel good about their chances, but you definitely got to watch Sam Pittman there. Obviously, was able to make a great connection with that young man over the course of time. So I'm definitely looking at that one. And as for Van Pran, my thought is that he's going to end up pushing it onto February. I think that some of the staff transition and everything just sort of necessitated him kind of taking a step back and evaluating his options a little bit more fully. So not expecting word on Van Pran tomorrow, but look for him in February.
Now going forward, I know the early signing period. Are there any JUCO prospects? Because I think this is where you really want to hit on, Jake, is in that early period, getting those top junior college young men that can graduate early and then get in to camp, go through the weight program, and get ready for spring ball. But who are some of the names that you're hearing in that junior college front that Kirby and staff would love to have either on the offensive or defensive side of the ball?
There haven't been a ton of names for them in the JUCO ranks this year. I think that they're looking to go younger. I think that they feel that they've got a lot of experience on this roster, so it's not necessary to, bring some in to bolster it. But certainly, I think if they were going to go that route, one of the things I think they would have to consider would be tight end. If there's a guy out there that they're interested in, I think that would make all the sense in the world. They need two in this class, so an experienced guy would certainly help out there. And then I think quarterback is another option there. Get some competition in that room, have some guys kind of vying for that spot. Jake Fromm, his status moving forward, a little bit uncertain.
Right.
Not real sure exactly what he's going to do just yet. So going to be interesting to see that and see how Georgia is able to, finish out this class with those older guys.
No, when the early signing period is over on Friday, going forward, Jake, who are going to be some of the guys that Kirby and staff will look at to sign in that late period that's where that's the meat of your class? I mean, who are some of the guys that you'll be following, and maybe some players that people that listen to our show, Georgia fans or throughout the SEC, might want to keep an eye on, as Georgia could possibly be a place of destination?
Yeah, I think that definitely moving forward, you're going to want to see, in these All-American games, how do Keely Ringo and guys like Darnell Washington end up, kind of going. But really looking forward to February, I think that Georgia's concerns have to be with guys they've already got committed. Broderick Jones is one guy, five-star offensive tackle that they really need to keep in this class. He's an in-state kid. Auburn is really pushing very heavily for him and looks like a very serious contender. He plans to take his official visits in January and kind of get it out of the way then. So really looking forward to seeing how Georgia ends up handling that one. I think that those are the guys that they've got to keep the closest eye on because most of their commitments, for the most part, feel pretty solid at this point.
Well, Jake, as always, man, you're solid, for OTH each and every time I have you on here. I know you got some work to get to, as tomorrow's going to be a real, real hectic and busy day for you. But as always, man, thanks for taking time out here on OTH.
I appreciate you, Pat. Thank you.
All right. Now, that was Jake Roos of UGAsports.com giving us the update as the national signing early period starts tomorrow on the campus of the University of Georgia. He gave us all the updates on whom Kirby and the staff plan on signing, where they're going to be looking toward early signing day and beyond. But just real good information, Demetrius. And when you hear that, I'm going to go back over to my guy. He talked about Cedric Van Pran. We've had Cedric on several months ago, I believe, during the summertime. The nation's elite, number one ranked center in the country out of New Orleans Eastern High School. He's going to push it back. Also, too, Chad Lindbergh announced that he will sign through on social media last night. Didn't announce where. But just with those two kids, I mean, you see the Sam Pittman effect. How do you think this could help or hurt both Georgia while helping Arkansas in the long run?
I think having Sam Pittman gives us the ability to compete with those schools like Georgia, Auburn, Alabama, Kirby. I think year in and year out will always have the chance to get the top lineman. I think anytime you're talking SEC, you have to start with the trenches. So I think it kind of evens the playing field when you're talking where Arkansas kind of sits amongst the SEC.
Well, we caught up with following the Tulsa game, sophomore shooting guard Isaiah Joe and junior guard Mason Jones. Caught up with them finally and just talked with just how they felt following the big 98-79 route over the Tulsa Golden Hurricanes at Walton on Nola Richardson Court. And then when we get back, it's time to talk more recruiting. We're going to make our way up to Tuscaloosa where we get up with Justin Smith of TD Alabama Mag and talk recruiting and Saban football. This on the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479. Back in a bit.
Yeah, Mason, you were one of 9 last game. Today you hit a 3 like 50-something seconds in. Did you kind of feel like, hey, I'm going to be a lot better? And just what's your reaction to scoring 41?
Well, I'm just glad we was able to bounce back and get the win. But it was good to see that my energy was good. It was good to see that my energy led the way and started off early. So to let them know that I'm here and I'm ready to set the tone. So I knew when I set the tone good, the team going to follow. And that's just vice versa. When Zay come out going crazy, I'm going to follow him because that's what leaders do. And when I made one and Zay came back with 2 back-to-back, I was like, okay, we here. And we just led that to defense. We started off with defense. Coach Musk said, let the defense make your offense. And we came out with steals after steals on the defensive end. We gave up a couple easy points, but otherwise we did real good.
Mason, what's up? You missed a free throw at the end. What's up with that?
You
were getting a lot of points, not just on 3-pointers, but on slashing drives to the lane. Talk about kind of your well-rounded game like that, and when do you know when to take it in like that, or when do you notice when to set back and look for the perimeter shot?
That free throw, that kind of hurt, I pride myself on not missing free throws, so when that happened, I was very hurt. But to answer your other question, to be honest, it's just the feel of the game. They was coming up first, so I wanted to slash to get them off me, let them know to respect my 3. And having Zay and Desi and 5 out there to create for me.
Welcome back. It's our Tuesday edition with On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio coming to you on KDSJ 479. And real quick, once again, I want to give a shout out and a thank you to our sponsors that make this all possible. With that being said, Lindsay & Associates with an office location in Fayetteville, office location also too in Rogers. Corey Beck's Custom Painting, Local Motion, located just below Northwest Arkansas Mall, and KDK's Chicken at 989 South Razorback Road. Go see Keith and Kathy and get a plate of that love. Like they're still in the building. It's not your mama's. The best chicken and waffles in the South. Well, we made our way down between the hedges to talk a little SEC football recruiting as the big-time National Signing Day early period begins in just a little under 24 hours. So we're going to head our way up to Tuscaloosa and talk to Touchdown Alabama's Director of Recruiting and Scouting Analyst, Justin Smith. Justin, welcome to OTH, my man.
Thank you guys for having me, man.
Let's get into it. Alabama, when you talk recruiting, everyone wants to know how good is Alabama doing? With the early signing period starting tomorrow, how good is Coach Saban and staff expecting to do once tomorrow morning arrives?
I think they're expecting to do pretty well with the guys that are on the board, but I think they are really happy with the guys they currently have committed in the 2020 recruiting class. When you look at this class, especially at the linebacker position, we all know the problems that Alabama had there coming into last season where they had to basically throw Christian Harris and Shane Lee into the fire, and I think they really have done a good job by adding on linebackers in this particular recruiting class. And something that's really special about this recruiting class in terms of linebackers is the fact that all of them, except for one, are deciding to sign early and enroll early to the University of Alabama, and they will be on campus in January. And another guy, Alabama's defensive back commit, a four-star guy, Jaquez Robinson, will actually sign on Wednesday and enroll on Wednesday. So I definitely think the biggest part about Alabama's early signing day period plans is the fact that most of their 2020 recruiting class is going to be in the board, and they're going to have most of their signatures.
When you look at this class, I know you expect to have most of them in the boat starting tomorrow and when Friday concludes. But out of that group, Justin, who are some of the guys that maybe are going to be in early that maybe you thought this is going to be a process that could carry into the late signing period? Are there any of those guys that you would classify as, whoa, I didn't expect that to happen?
Well, I know one guy whose recruitment could have went over until February is Jamarian Latham, a four-star defensive tackle out of Pickens County High School in Reform, Alabama. He's an in-state kid. He grew up like in Alabama. I think Reform is very close to Tuscaloosa, so he's an in-state kid who really likes Alabama. But Ole Miss was making a push for him. Obviously, they switched their head coaching over to Lane Kiffin. I think that affected him taking an official visit to them in this particular month. So I definitely think Jamarian Latham's recruitment could have went over to February, but since Ole Miss made that change, I think he's locked in with Alabama at the moment. Another guy whose recruitment could have went over to February, I think it could have been bad for Alabama, is four-star linebacker DeMoy Kennedy out of Theodore High School in Theodore, Alabama, as Ed Ogeron and LSU made a huge push for him heading down the stretch, and I think they're really still pushing for him, although he will make his decision and sign on Wednesday. LSU is still in the mix in my mind just a little bit. It wouldn't be a huge shock if LSU came in and pulled DeMoy Kennedy, although Alabama really wants him. He's a guy who's projected to play inside linebacker.
Talking with Justin Smith. He's the scouting and national recruiting director for Touchdown Alabama, covers all Alabama recruiting here on the Hill, as he's going to be joining his good buddy Stephen M. Smith to cover everything Bama for us from Touchdown Alabama magazine. But Justin, when you look at the recruiting landscape for Coach Saban, with so many of his former assistants going on to stay in the SEC, Kirby Smart, Jeremy Pruitt, Jimbo Fisher, the list goes on. And they're taking some of the elite recruiters that were once on that Alabama staff. How difficult is it now with so many great recruiters and coaching staffs in the conference for Coach Saban to continuously, keep loading the gun, so to speak?
It's very difficult. As you can see, Kirby Smart in Georgia is always in the top 10, in the top 5, and close to the number 1 spot in every recruiting class. Now, when you look at Lane Kiffin, you have to know that he's going to shake up some of the SEC recruiting, some of the coaches changes that are going all around the SEC. Ed Ogeron at LSU is making a huge impact on recruiting after a huge season this particular year. So it's becoming a bit difficult for Nick Saban recruiting in the SEC, as most of the talent will come to the SEC as always, but it's getting very difficult, as you said, for Nick Saban to compete against those guys that he had on his staff at one time. For example, when you look at LSU, guys like 5-star tight end Rick Gilbert, who everyone thought could have been an Alabama commit, went to LSU. Another 5-star wide receiver, King Jarrett, who people felt that Alabama was in a good position for. He commits to LSU kind of out of the blue. Now didn't really have a commitment date at that time. So it's becoming very difficult. You can just see it in the works happening.
When you look at Arkansas with hiring Sam Pittman, whom some considered to be, I believe at the time, the number 3 recruiter in college football at this moment prior to coming to Arkansas to be the head coach. He's been well renowned as a recruiter, in particular the offensive line. From what because Georgia and Alabama seem to always butt heads when they're talking offensive linemen. How long, and if so, is Sam, do you think Coach Pittman is the type of coach that can get Arkansas to where it used to be that, when you thought tough football, you thought Arkansas, is Sam Pittman the guy to restore the glory days in Fayetteville?
I think he can, but you know the college football game has changed, so not many people want to play the old school style of football. But I definitely think it begins with the offensive line position. No matter what offense you play, you're going to want to have strong offensive linemen. And I think he's going to really reach out to those guys, and it's going to be a strength of his recruiting efforts. But I definitely think that him coming to Arkansas, being a coach that Arkansas wanted, a guy who has Arkansas in his blood, a guy who really wants to push the Arkansas Razorbacks, and that recruits really react to that. As you see with Ed Ogeron in the LSU, they can react to a guy that see, hey, he's really about this school. He really knows the school. Hey, I want to play with this guy because he has that particular pride for that school. That's what I think Sam Pittman brings to Arkansas, and I think it'll pay dividends for Arkansas in the recruiting cycle. Not particularly this recruiting cycle. I know it's going to be very difficult for him to finish off the way he probably wants this time around, but in the future, I think it will pay huge dividends for Arkansas.
They've had a lot of success there in Tuscaloosa with the junior college football player. You know, who are some of the guys, Justin, that will be signing in this early period out of the junior college ranks that Coach Saban and either the offensive or defensive staffs feel really good about, you know, stepping on campus and really from the moment they're here impacting the program?
Well, Alabama's newest commit, a guy who they just got a commitment from, I think, a couple of days ago, is Ronald Williams Jr. out of Hudson Community College in Kansas. He's a pretty nice kid, a guy who stands at 6'2", a lengthy defensive back who's an athlete in every sense of the word. He's one of those guys that played quarterback during his time in high school. As high school coaches always say, you want to put the ball in your best athlete's hands.
Right.
So he's one of those guys that's just naturally athletic. I think Alabama's going to want him to come on campus and make an impact in the secondary, as they will lose Shaheem Carter and Trayvon Diggs at the end of the season. So there's a door opening for a younger guy or a JUCO guy to make an impact in the defensive back ranks, and I think they got a good one in Ronald Williams Jr. They was looking at Nadab Joseph, but I think he had some academic problems.
Right.
Nadab Joseph was part of Alabama's 2018 recruiting class at one point, but he flipped to Georgia close to the signing day, and I think his academics are going to hold him back. But that is what I think Alabama's looking at when you look at the JUCO ranks, Ronald Williams Jr.
Once we clear these 72 hours, that run from Wednesday to Friday with this early signing period, after that, when the staff and Coach Saban, they sit down and go through the board, who will be some of the names, Justin, that the Alabama faithful and listeners here on the program want to keep an eye out for, that they're going to want to close in that second period of signing come the first Wednesday in February?
Well, I think it's going to depend on how this early signing period rolls out for Alabama. For example, I know they're going to look at five-star tight end Darnell Washington, for example, see what his decision will be, and a couple of more guys' decision, like another four-star wide receiver in Arian Smith, and basically see how they will look at the rest of the signing period when it comes to February. A guy I think they're really going to look at is five-star wide receiver Rakeem Jarrett, who is committed to LSU. Unfortunately, he cannot sign early and enroll early because of some school problems but because of his school's restrictions. They won't let him sign early. So that is a window for Alabama to make an impact in his recruitment. Another guy I think he was committed to Arkansas at one time is Brendan Frazier, a tight end.
Right.
And I think Alabama's going to make a push for him heading into the traditional signing period if they don't land five-star tight end Darnell Washington. But I think the biggest target, in my opinion, is going to be four-star defensive tackle McKinley Jackson out of Mississippi. I saw this guy play at the Mississippi All-Star game. He's a grown man inside. It's hard to contain this guy. He's such a talented kid in the inside. And I think he won the MVP award for the entire Alabama Mississippi All-Star game. And when a defensive lineman wins that award, you know he's special.
Right.
So that's what I think Alabama is going to look at very hard. Guys like McKinley Jackson, Rakeem Jarrett, and, as I said, other guys on their targets and on their board.
Well, I know you got to get off, and you got busy things taking place as soon as you hang up this phone as the National Signing Day begins tomorrow. But welcome to being a part of the show. Look forward to having you on many more times. But for now, Justin, thanks for taking time out with us here on OTH.
Thank you guys for having me.
All right. That was Justin Smith, scouting and recruiting analyst for Touchdown Alabama Mag, covers all recruiting for us here on the Hill Sports Talk magazine. I mean, radio, I should say. We're a magazine, too. Yeah, we are kind of a magazine, if you really think about it. But we're going to step away, get a real quick break, show you highlights. Mason Jones had quite the night on Saturday as he scored 41 points. Took 18 shots, went 12 of 13, but there was a lot of contributions taking place in that game. And then we'll come back and talk with Jeff Tarplett of Gig 'em 247 Sports. Time to talk a little Aggies. and what's going on in C-Stat as far as recruiting. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479. Let's get it.
Jones says, give me some threes as well, and Arkansas is on the board first.
If you want to go into a hostile environment and get one on the road.
Isaiah Joe for three. Welcome to Bud Walton Arena, where Arkansas has a 2-point advantage over Tulsa. And can the SEC win back-to-back games? Mississippi State taking down Kansas State. We've got the 61st edition of Arkansas Tulsa in Fayetteville this afternoon. And Isaiah Joe has his second triple in the early minutes.
Public enemy number one.
Non-conference win. When we're weighing resumes in March. Joe, the transition, three. Three triples for Joe. It's a 9-1 Arkansas run. Joe forces the turnover. Mason Jones. Timeout Tulsa.
Welcome back, everyone. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio. It's our Tuesday edition of OTH here on KDSJ 479 as we come to you Monday through Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. or Tuesday through Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. And tomorrow, when you talk National Signing Day, it means a lot more. They go by that in the SEC, but it's real serious. And, this is where you find out who's got the Jimmies and the Joes. It's, in the recruiting world. So we just left Tuscaloosa. Before that, we were in Athens. We got a little more time, so we made our way down to C-Stat where we're going to catch up with Gig'em247sport.com's Jeff Tarpman. JT, welcome to OTH, my man.
How you doing, guys?
Doing real good. What is the temperature and the expectation for Coach Jimbo Fisher and staff in C-Stat here at the start of early signing day?
Well, I think the temperature is pretty hot right now. A&M feels very, very good about a class that currently ranks 5th nationally, 3rd in the SEC, according to the 24/7 Sports. They've got They're trying to close on some players, most notably Zach Evans, the running back from North Shore, 5-star, who is one of the better running backs come out of the state of Texas in recent years. They got a big commitment this morning from Brian George, who's a junior college cornerback out of Florida, beat out Auburn, Alabama, schools like that for his services. So as they close down to tomorrow and in early signing day, they're feeling really, really good.
When you look at this class, Jeff, what's the one or two positions of need that had to be met in this class coming up for Jimbo going forward that you from your vantage point, because you cover recruiting on a daily basis from your vantage point, what are the 1-2 positions that they really did well that they had to address in your opinion?
I think George helps him out in terms of the cornerback spot. A&M had a couple of good corners this year in Elijah Blades and Miles Jones, but they were seeking to get a little bit better depth there and perhaps be able to play 3 corners more often than what they did this season. They're also perhaps looking to maybe move a guy like Jalen Jones, who they have committed at the position to safety. Jones was one of the better safeties in the opening this past summer. Really opened everybody's eyes to the possibility he could play safety. So I think that's in terms of where A&M was 2 years ago when they had a lot of issues on pass defense. I think now you look at them, they've got an influx of talent, particularly Blades last year. Only issue with Blades was he missed quite a bit of time due to a shoulder injury. And so they needed to kind of get that taken care of. But that was probably, as far as needs go, that was probably the one that they've done the best job with overall so far.
Jeff, I want to talk to you about maybe some surprises in this early signing class that maybe Jimbo and staff may have felt like would have gone into the later signing period, but for the job that they were able to do, was able to got the young man convinced and had enough trust in him to go ahead and sign early. Who are some of those guys, in your opinion, when you look at what they should be bringing in tomorrow, that were a surprise to you?
I don't know that they really have any surprises, so to speak, in that regard. I think what they've done a really good job of is getting guys that they targeted, that they wanted to be able to sign early so they wouldn't be up for grabs overall. And not only that, I think even more importantly, to be able to get those kids in school in January so they can participate in the off-season program and then go forward into spring practice. And I think at one point a few years ago, that on the surface, that sounds like a great idea. The reality was it wasn't paying off as much as perhaps people, thought it should be on a theoretical basis. But you look at some of the guys they brought in early last year who were able to make an impact during the season. Five-star defensive end DeMarvin Leal, who took over one of the starting in spots mid-season and had more tackles in a half season than his predecessor did all year.
Right.
You look at you look at someone like Andre White Jr., who was a linebacker from Pennsylvania. They were able to plug him in as a backup linebacker, and even though A&M didn't need him for extended stretches, so to speak, in place of one of the starters, he was able to play good minutes as a member of the pass defense and passing situations. And so as a result, you get guys like that coming in and getting acclimated early and being able to do things early so that they can at least somehow contribute, even if they're not starting like Leal did, at least like White. They can come in and certainly be a serviceable backup.
When you look at the SEC, the landscape with just tremendous coaches throughout the conference, but what a lot of these head coaches have and are well known for is their ability to recruit at a high level when they were as position coaches, being what I mean by being ranked in the top 25 recruiters at some point during their careers. With all these coaches putting together great staffs that are able to recruit at the high level, and I believe right now there's 8 or 9 SEC schools in the top 20 expected in this early signing period. Talk about how difficult it is, and what is it, Jeff, because you also covered A&M when they were in the other conference. What is the difference between, the player that comes into the SEC as opposed to what you see in other conferences? Talk about that in your opinion.
It was funny. The first year that the A&M was in the Big 12, I went out to dinner with some friends of mine who went to Big 12 schools. And this was when Johnny Manziel was running amok over the league, and they were asking about him. And I said, you talk about, Manziel and everything he does, and I think this was probably like 7, 8 games. This was even before the Alabama game in which A&M pulled off the upset over the number 1 ranked Alabama in Tuscaloosa. I said, the big thing about the SEC is that everybody you play every week is big.
Right.
The size in this conference, people talk about the athleticism, but the absolute size of everybody in the conference, even teams that you don't think of as the upper echelon teams, such as an Arkansas, Mississippi State, that kind of thing. In 2010, A&M faced LSU in the Cotton Bowl. I did some interviews with the LSU players, and A&M had Von Miller that year, who eventually became a Super Bowl MVP.
Right.
Talking to an LSU player, and this guy was just gargantuan. He was like 6'6" and 330. And I said, he'd been injured. I said, well, look, have you looked at film on him yet? He goes, no, not really. I said, what do you think of him? He's Butkus Award winner. He goes, well, we play good people every week in the SEC. And I was like, boy, A&M's going to have a hard time with this game. And sure enough, they wound up losing the game. And that's the thing. Everybody, the demographics of this conference are such that you just get so many players, and every state that can contribute.
Right.
And just more so than any other region in the country. And they're all big. They got a lot of speed. Mostly it's just size. It's just such a big conference from a physical standpoint. And you have to do this every week. You have to have depth because you're going to have injuries. Because even when you play teams that may be, let's say, 0 for 4 in the conference, like, when A&M's played Arkansas the last couple of 3 years, Arkansas hadn't had the best program.
Right.
Hadn't mattered. They've taken A&M to the wire, and they've beat up on A&M. And, that first SEC game of the year, A&M may not have been the same team before that game than they were after.
Agreed. Well, Jeff, as always, my man, I know you got to get back to the phones. I know your work has only begun, but continue to do the great work that you do, and I look forward to continue having you be a part of On the Hill.
All righty, brother. Thanks so very much. Appreciate the time.
All right, bud. That was Jeff Tarpley of Gig'em 247 Sports, and that's going to wrap up today's show here on OTH. I want to give a shout out to all of our guests that made their way here on the Hill Sports Talk today, with that being Jake Roos of UGAsports.com for giving us the Georgia take on Kirby Smart and his National Signing Day class, what they're expecting. Also to Justin Smith of Touchdown Alabama Magazine. He came on and told us what Nick and the boys were wanting to roll tide with. And lastly, Jeff Tarpley of Gig'em 247 Sports. He told us what to expect in CSTAT with Jimbo and the boys. But that's going to wrap it up. I want to give a shout out to all of our sponsors for making this possible. That would be Lindsay and Associates with an office location in Fayetteville, an office location also too in Rogers. Locomotion, located just below the Northwest Arkansas Mall in Fayetteville. Corey Beck's Custom Painting, needed residential, commercial, doesn't matter. Contact Corey. You won't be disappointed. And lastly, KDK's Chicken. They're located at 989 South Razorback Road. Make your way down there, see Keith and Kathy. Get your plate of that love. And like they say on the building, it's not your mama's. The best chicken and waffles in the South. But that's going to wrap it up for myself, for my producer, Demetrius Johnson. We'll be back tomorrow with much, much more. This On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479. You guys have a blessed one, and let's get it. Did that.